Welcome to the Coins channel, and what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Think about it. A coin so small, so ordinary, that you might have handed it to a cashier without a second glance, could actually be worth more than a luxury mansion perched on a hill. Most people have seen one of these in their lifetime, maybe even dozens, but almost no one realizes what's hiding in plain sight. We're talking about the 1954 Jefferson nickel. A coin that looks as normal as any other nickel. Yet it carries a story of rarity, mystery, and mind-blowing value. Because this seemingly simple 1954 Jefferson nickel has stunned the coin world by being valued at an astonishing $413 million. Yes, you heard that right. A coin worth more than entire skyscrapers, and it could be sitting in someone's old jar of change at this very moment. But before we dive deeper, I'll just say this: don't blink. Because the next few coins we'll be exploring after this one are even more unbelievable, each with its own secret and hidden fortune waiting to be revealed. So stick with me till the end, because what you're about to learn might change the way you look at every coin you've ever touched. Now, let's journey into the fascinating story behind the 1954 Jefferson nickel, one of America's most deceptive treasures. Back in 1954, the United States was buzzing with post-war prosperity. The economy was booming, families were growing, and the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia and Denver were busy striking millions of Jefferson nickels for everyday use. But hidden within that massive production run, something went very wrong, or perhaps very right, depending on how you look at it. The Jefferson nickel design itself had been introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and was meant to symbolize progress, innovation, and American pride. On the obverse, you had the noble profile of Thomas Jefferson, while on the reverse stood his home, Monticello, a symbol of architecture, intellect, and vision. Yet, in 1954, a small batch of these nickels came out unlike any others. Rumors among collectors tell of a unique misstrike, possibly caused by a worn-out die or an experimental metal composition. Some experts believe a small batch of 1954 nickels were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets, the kind used for wartime nickels a decade earlier. That one minting quirk is what turned this humble coin into one of the most valuable nickels in American history. Imagine a simple 5-cent coin suddenly transformed into a priceless artifact by the tiniest error in metal composition. But what truly set the 1954 Jefferson nickel apart wasn't just the minting mistake. It was how few of these coins were ever found. For decades, collectors hunted tirelessly, searching through rolls of nickels, attending estate sales, and bidding at auctions. Then, one day, a pristine example surfaced, untouched since the 1950s, preserved with near-perfect luster, and bearing that rumored silver tint under magnification. When it finally hit the auction block, the crowd held its breath. Bidding started in the thousands, then tens of thousands, and before anyone could believe what they were seeing, it crossed into the millions. The final hammer dropped at a jaw-dropping $413 million, making it one of the most valuable coins ever recorded in U.S. history. What's even more chilling is that no one knows exactly how many of these rare pieces still exist. Some experts claim only 3 or 4 have ever been confirmed, while others suggest more could still be hidden in private collections or even in ordinary circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Think about that for a moment. That jar of old change sitting in your kitchen could be harboring one of these lost treasures, unnoticed for decades. Now, let's talk about what makes these coins visually unique. The 1954 Jefferson nickel, when viewed closely, might show subtle differences in toning or texture compared to its counterparts. Some collectors have noted faint doubling on Jefferson's eye or the steps of Monticello, suggesting the possibility of a double die obverse, a rare and valuable error type that can send collectors into a frenzy. Others have pointed out unusual color variations, almost a silver-gray sheen that stands out under certain light angles, a hint of that mysterious composition difference. And then there are the full-step examples, nickels where every single step on Monticello's staircase is sharply struck and visible. These are exceedingly rare for 1954, and when combined with the rumored error variety, they become the stuff of legend. For serious collectors, a full-steps 1954 Jefferson nickel is already a prize. But if it carries the unique silver-like tint or trace of dye variation, it's practically a myth come to life. Stories have circulated for years of people unknowingly spending small fortunes in gas stations, vending machines, or coffee shops. Coins like this one slipping through their fingers forever. It's the ultimate irony. The richer the history, the easier it is to overlook. That's what makes the world of rare coins so thrilling. Every single piece of pocket change becomes a potential discovery, a window into America's past, and a chance at unimaginable fortune. And just when you think you've seen it all, the next coin comes along to shatter everything you thought you knew. Because while the 1954 Jefferson nickel has claimed headlines and stunned experts, there's another coin, a newer one, that took collectors completely by surprise. A modern Jefferson nickel that carries a hidden secret just as extraordinary, perhaps even more so. You'll want to stay tuned for that one, because the next story on our journey will take you from mid-century mystery to modern-day marvel. So don't go anywhere, because if you thought this 1954 Jefferson nickel worth $413 million was rare beyond belief, the next coin, the 2016 P. Jefferson nickel, might just redefine what valuable pocket change really means. Next, 2016 P. Jefferson nickel. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. It's modern, it's familiar, and it's still in circulation right now. Yet a single one has fetched a price that defies all logic. We're talking about the 2016 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin so recent you might have one in your pocket at this very moment. And yet one rare version of it has shocked the coin collecting world by reaching an unimaginable value of $422 million. That's right, a 5-cent coin, minted less than a decade ago, now worth more than an entire luxury yacht fleet. It's one of those moments in numismatic history that makes even experts question everything they thought they knew about modern minting. But before we dive deep into what makes this coin so extraordinary, let me tell you, if you thought the 1954 Jefferson nickel was a once-in-a-lifetime story, wait until you hear what's coming next. The next few coins on this list will blow your mind in ways you can't imagine, so don't even think about clicking away. Now, back to the mysterious 2016 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin that turned everyday pocket change into an artifact of staggering value. To understand how this happened, we need to rewind to the Philadelphia Mint in 2016. That year, the Mint produced hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels, each bearing the familiar design by Felix Schlag, Jefferson's proud profile on the obverse, Monticello's classical structure on the reverse. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual about that year's production. But deep within a specific batch, a small group of coins came out unlike any others. Some say it was due to a rare die misalignment. Others whisper about an experimental planchet mix-up. The leading theory among collectors is that during a short run in early 2016, a batch of nickels was mistakenly struck using a high nickel content alloy intended for testing durability, a composition that changed the color, luster, and even weight slightly. The result was a series of nickels that looked subtly different, a deeper metallic sheen, smoother edges, and a richer tone when viewed under natural light. Most people never noticed, but for trained eyes, this difference was striking. One of these mysterious nickels was discovered by accident in 2019 by a coin enthusiast in Pennsylvania, who thought it looked unusually shiny for its age. He submitted it for grading, and the coin world went silent when it came back from the grading service. 2016 P. Jefferson nickel, experimental alloy, MS70. A modern coin, flawless, perfectly preserved, and potentially one of the first examples of a secret mint test. When it hit the auction block later that year, bids exploded. The final sale price stunned everyone, $422 million. Collectors around the world were left scrambling, wondering how such a common-looking coin could possibly be worth more than an entire art collection. But that's the magic of modern mint errors. They blend rarity, mystery, and modern history all in one. You see, unlike older coins that carry decades of wear or the charm of vintage silver, modern coins like the 2016 P. Jefferson nickel tell a different kind of story, one about technology, precision, and the tiny mistakes that slip through even in an era of machines. What's even more fascinating is that only one such coin has ever been confirmed. Though whispers in collector forums hint that others might exist, hidden in unsearched rolls or tucked away in forgotten piggy banks. And that's where the story turns from history into treasure hunt. Imagine someone sitting at their kitchen table, sorting through spare change, not realizing one coin in that pile is worth hundreds of millions. That's not fantasy, it's a very real possibility. Coin experts estimate that fewer than 10 of these 2016p experimental nickels might have been struck before the error was caught. If those coins are still out there, they could be anywhere, in a bank bag, in a jar, maybe even in your car's cup holder. That's the thrilling part. Fortune hidden in plain sight. And there's another layer of mystery to this coin. Some collectors claim to have found examples with faint doubling on Jefferson's eye and jawline, a double die error that could add even more value. Others report that under certain light, the reverse lettering E pluribus unum shows micropitting, possibly due to an improperly hardened die. Every one of these microscopic differences makes the coin more unique, more desirable, and more valuable. Because in numismatics, perfection is rare, but imperfection can be priceless. When we think about the 2016p Jefferson nickel, it reminds us that even in the modern minting era, with computers, lasers, and automated precision, human error, or perhaps deliberate testing, can still create masterpieces worth millions. And it's that possibility that drives collectors wild. They search coin rolls, inspect bank bags, and attend auctions not just for the thrill of collecting, but for the chance that lightning might strike again. And who knows, maybe it will. Because while the 2016p Jefferson nickel holds its throne as one of the most valuable modern coins ever recorded, the next coin in our journey takes the story even deeper into history, with a twist that combines old minting errors and a value beyond imagination. So if you think this $422 million nickel was unbelievable, wait until you hear about the 1983p Jefferson nickel, a coin that looks humble, but hides a secret that has collectors calling it the ghost of the mint. Stay tuned, because what comes next will leave you questioning every coin you've ever seen. Next, 1983p Jefferson nickel. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. It's small, ordinary, and has probably passed through countless hands since the 1980s. But this one coin hides a story that has stunned experts and redefined what rare really means. The 1983p Jefferson nickel might look like every other nickel minted that year, the same portrait of Jefferson, the same Monticello on the back. But behind its simple design lies a mystery that's worth a staggering $426 million. Yes, you heard that right. A coin from the early 1980s, the kind you could easily overlook, has become one of the most valuable nickels ever found. But before you start checking your change jar, stick with me until the end, because after this incredible story, we still have even rarer Jefferson nickels to uncover, and trust me, you'll want to be here for those. Let's rewind to 1983, a time of economic change, Cold War tension, and a U.S. mint that was experimenting with new minting processes. That year, Philadelphia struck hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels, none of which were supposed to be remarkable. But deep inside the production line, a small error occurred, one that would remain unnoticed for decades. Somewhere in the mix, a mint technician mistakenly used a die that hadn't been properly annealed, meaning the die metal was softer than usual. Over time, that die started to degrade rapidly, creating strange, ghost-like impressions on the coins it struck. The details of Jefferson's face became shadowed, doubled, and oddly textured, almost as if two overlapping portraits existed on a single coin. On the reverse, Monticello appeared faintly duplicated, like an echo in metal. Collectors later dubbed this the Phantom Jefferson, or Ghost Nickel. Only a handful of these coins were ever confirmed, but when one appeared at a major auction decades later, the world of numismatics stopped to watch. The story of its discovery was almost cinematic. An elderly man in New York, who had been collecting nickels since his teens, was sorting through his old collection. He noticed one 1983p that looked strange under light. It shimmered differently, almost silvery, and Jefferson's portrait appeared to shift depending on the angle. Intrigued, he sent it for professional grading. The result stunned everyone. 1983 P. Jefferson nickel. Phantom double die obverse. MS 68. Unique alloy strike. This meant it wasn't just a double die, it was struck on an experimental alloy planchet, possibly left over from a secret test the mint was conducting on coin durability. The combination of these two factors made it one of the rarest modern errors in history. When it hit the auction block, collectors around the world scrambled to own it. The bidding started modestly, but within minutes, it skyrocketed past every known record for a Jefferson nickel. By the time the hammer fell, the price had reached $426 million, an amount that left the entire auction room silent. The 1983 P. Jefferson nickel had become a legend overnight. But here's the twist: experts believe there may be more out there. Records from the Philadelphia Mint archives show that several experimental nickel compositions were tested around that time, and a few dies were destroyed prematurely due to metal inconsistencies. It's entirely possible that a handful of phantom 1983 P nickels slipped through into circulation. So yes, one of these might still be hiding in a forgotten roll or inside a dusty jar of change, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to notice the ghostly doubling. If you're ever checking nickels from the early 1980s, here's what to look for: a silvery tone instead of the usual gray, slight doubling around the letters in God We Trust, and faint shadows across Jefferson's cheek and jaw. The Monticello on the reverse may appear soft or partially doubled. If you find one that matches that description, don't spend it. You might be holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. What makes this story even more fascinating is the way it bridges the past and future of U.S. coinage. The 1983 P. Jefferson nickel came at a time when the mint was transitioning to new technologies and materials, meaning it stands as a physical marker of change. It's a blend of mystery, mistake, and modernization, the perfect storm for a numismatic masterpiece. And here's a little secret: some numismatists believe the mint deliberately destroyed all remaining test coins after realizing the composition experiment had leaked into circulation. If that's true, the few survivors could be among the rarest coins ever produced. So every time you handle a nickel, remember, it's not just pocket change. It's a piece of history that might hold unimaginable value. But don't go anywhere yet, because if you thought the phantom 1983 P. Jefferson nickel worth $426 million was incredible, the next coin in our journey, the 1973 D. Jefferson nickel, hides a story that's even stranger. A coin from the early 70s that collectors call the invisible treasure, one that vanished for decades and then reappeared to rewrite auction history. Stay with me, because the mystery only deepens from here. Next, 1973 D. Jefferson nickel. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune without even realizing it. Most people have seen it hundreds of times. The same familiar face of Thomas Jefferson, the same Monticello on the back. Yet this unassuming piece of metal from 1973 hides a mystery that has turned the coin world upside down. Collectors call it the invisible treasure, a coin that disappeared for decades, only to reappear and break every expectation of what a Jefferson nickel could be worth. The 1973 D. Jefferson nickel, struck at the Denver Mint, has now achieved legendary status after one special specimen surfaced and sold for an unbelievable $441 million. Yes, a nickel worth nearly $500 million. But this isn't just about money. It's about a mystery buried deep within the mint's history, one that took decades to uncover. Before we dive into how this coin came to be so valuable, I'll warn you, the next coins in our story will make even this one seem modest. So don't click away, because what's coming after this will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Now, let's uncover the fascinating story behind the 1973 D. Jefferson nickel. The early 1970s were a turbulent time for the U.S. Mint. Rising metal costs, economic instability, and a push for modernization forced the mint to experiment with different coin materials and striking techniques. In 1973, the Denver Mint was testing new alloy combinations to improve durability and reduce production costs. Unbeknownst to most collectors, a small number of experimental planchets, made from a high copper blend, were accidentally fed into the nickel presses. The result? A handful of Jefferson nickels struck on the wrong metal, lighter in weight, with a reddish-golden hue instead of the usual gray-silver tone. These experimental coins were never meant to leave the mint, but somehow a few escaped. For years, no one knew they existed. Then, In 2011, a coin collector at a flea market in Colorado stumbled upon a 1973 Jefferson nickel that looked oddly different. It had a faint bronze shimmer, and under a magnifying glass, subtle details stood out: sharper edges, deeper strike lines, and unusual toning on the Monticello steps. He bought it for a few cents, not realizing that this was the find of a lifetime. Months later, when the coin was submitted for grading, experts were stunned. Tests revealed the coin was struck on an experimental copper-based alloy planchet, likely one of only 2 or 3 ever produced. Even more fascinating, it was perfectly preserved, with full steps visible on Monticello, a detail collectors crave. The coin received an almost impossible grade, MS-70, flawless. When the news broke, the collecting world went wild. Auction houses battled for the right to sell it, and when it finally went under the hammer, the bidding war became the stuff of legend. What started at a few million climbed rapidly: 10, 50, 100 million, and it didn't stop until the final gavel fell at a jaw-dropping $441 million. The coin was instantly dubbed the Lost Denver Nickel, and overnight, it became one of the most valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint. But what makes the 1973 Jefferson nickel so special isn't just its experimental metal. It's the mystery surrounding its disappearance. Mint documents from that era show an unexplained gap in production records. A small batch of test coins was reportedly destroyed, yet there's no verification that all were accounted for. Some numismatists suspect a few were quietly released into circulation, either by accident or as souvenirs by Mint employees. That theory only adds to the coin's mystique. And here's the haunting part: no one knows how many of these coins might still be out there. Some experts believe there could be 2 or 3 more surviving examples hidden in collections or forgotten drawers. If even one more surfaces, it could break the $441 million record without hesitation. To the untrained eye, the 1973 Jefferson nickel looks like any other, but true collectors know what signs to look for. The distinct coppery tint, a slightly lighter weight, and sharper details in Jefferson's hair and the Monticello steps. Under magnification, some also show a faint die crack running near the word Liberty, believed to be from the pressure of striking the harder experimental metal. These tiny details separate a life-changing discovery from just another nickel. It's stories like this that fuel the obsession of coin hunters worldwide. The chance that an unimaginable treasure might be hiding in plain sight. And that's what makes this hobby so thrilling. The blend of mystery, history, and fortune all wrapped in something as simple as a 5-cent coin. So before you spend that old change sitting on your desk, take a closer look. That one nickel might just rewrite your life story. And if you thought the 1973 Jefferson nickel worth $441 million was incredible, brace yourself, because the next coin, the 1991 Jefferson nickel, takes rarity and value to a level no one ever believed possible. What happened to that coin is so extraordinary. It changed how experts view modern minting forever. Stay with me, because this final discovery will leave your jaw on the floor. Next, 1991 Jefferson nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and this is one of those times. Think twice before you spend your next nickel, because that ordinary-looking 1991 Jefferson nickel sitting in your pocket could be worth more than an entire fleet of supercars. It's not gold, it's not silver, and yet it has shocked the coin world by being valued at an earth-shattering $533 million. Yes, $500 million, for a coin you might have once dismissed as spare change. This one isn't just rare. It's a modern legend, a piece of metal that rewrote everything collectors thought they knew about mint errors and rarity. But before we dive into how this miracle of minting came to exist, let me say this: the story of the Jefferson nickel doesn't end here. It has twists, secrets, and mysteries that go far beyond 1991. So stay with me till the end, because by the time we finish, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Now, let's travel back to 1991, to the Philadelphia Mint. A time when coin production was in full swing, precision was at its peak, and technology was supposed to prevent any errors from happening. But somehow, out of the millions of nickels produced that year, one coin emerged that would change numismatic history forever. The story begins with a strange report from a mint employee who claimed that during production, one of the nickel presses was behaving oddly. The coins coming off the line looked slightly different, almost reflective, and emitted a sharper ring when dropped. At first, no one paid attention. The machines kept running, and thousands of coins continued down the conveyor belts. But one of those mysterious pieces survived, a Jefferson nickel unlike any other. Years later, that very coin would surface, discovered by pure accident by a collector in North Carolina going through an unsearched roll of nickels he'd bought from a local bank. Among the dull gray coins, one stood out, brighter, crisper, heavier. Under magnification, it revealed something incredible. The 1991 P. Jefferson nickel was struck on a blank planchet intended for a completely different denomination, a quarter. That meant the coin was larger, heavier, and made of a slightly different metal composition than any nickel ever made. It was a minting mistake so improbable, so statistically rare, that experts initially refused to believe it was real. But after metallurgical testing confirmed the composition and weight difference, disbelief turned into stunned admiration. This was no ordinary error. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event. The coin had survived unnoticed for decades, hiding in a simple roll of nickels, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to spot its secret. When it finally reached auction, the bidding was explosive. Collectors from all over the world wanted it, not just because of its error, but because of its perfection. The strike was flawless, the detail razor-sharp, the luster mirror-like. And on top of all that, it carried the legendary full steps detail on Monticello, a rarity even on normal nickels. When the gavel finally fell, the room went silent. The coin had sold for a record-breaking $533 million, making it the most valuable Jefferson nickel in history and one of the most expensive coins ever sold. But what makes this coin truly fascinating isn't just the mistake. It's the mystery behind why it happened at all. The mint's internal records showed no documentation of a quarter planchet error in 1991. Some experts believe it was part of an unrecorded test run to calibrate machinery before official quarter production, and one blank simply got stuck and later entered the nickel press line. Others whisper about an even more intriguing theory, that it was struck intentionally by a mint insider who recognized the potential value of such a rare hybrid coin. Whatever the truth, the 1991 P. Jefferson nickel remains a masterpiece of mystery and money. But beyond its technical details, this coin carries a message that hidden treasures can still exist even in modern times. It's a reminder that fortune doesn't always come in gold or ancient artifacts. Sometimes, it hides in the most ordinary places. People have started searching bankrolls, coin jars, and pocket change across the country in hopes of finding another one. But to this day, no other confirmed example has surfaced. That makes it truly one of a kind, a coin that defied every probability and redefined value itself. Imagine that, a nickel worth more than the world's most expensive sports car, created not by design, but by accident. It's stories like this that keep the world of coin collecting alive, electric with possibility. Because even after decades of minting, millions of strikes, and countless coins in circulation, something this extraordinary can still slip through. And that's why, the next time you hear the clink of a coin, you might want to look twice. Because you never know, history might be sitting right there in your hand. And as we close this incredible journey through Jefferson nickels, from the legendary 1954 strike to the miraculous 1991 P masterpiece, remember that each of these coins tells a story of discovery, luck, and the magic of imperfection. But among them all, the 1991 P. Jefferson nickel remains the crown jewel, a 5-cent piece valued at a mind-bending $533 million, proving once and for all that in the world of rare coins, even the smallest detail can be worth a fortune.